Okay, here's Dean, a famous TikToker who I enjoy destroying all the time. And he's about to give us a life lesson in logic, ladies and gentlemen.
A is wrong because it's unnatural.
By the way, this is not an argument that conservatives use because it would be a naturalistic fallacy. So it would just be dismissed. It would be an irrelevant argument. But as you can see, what the progressives like to do, straw man the position of the other side and then argue with themselves as though they're arguing with you, the conservative.
False. Being gay is natural. We observe same-sex intercourse in over 3,000 animal species.
Now, I just want to point this out for any of you, a quick philosophy lesson. Even if it was the case that all animals were gay, it still wouldn't mean that human beings, that it was natural for them to be gay. You see how that works? Like, that's just basic logic again. This is quite the failure, by the way, quite the failure.
Bonobos are a great ape species. We observe same-gender intercourse within their species all of the time.
Gross.
We also see that 10% of moose will exclusively engage in same-sex intercourse and will actually refuse to engage in opposite-sex intercourse. We've also seen
but what about all of the killing that bonobos do with each other? How about the bonobos rip each other
but
apart?
That's natural. That's natural.
It is natural.
Yeah, it's natural.
We should do it as well.
Yeah. But this is the problem, right? This is how these things get out in the ethos, and what they claim you believe gets out in the ethos is because they build a straw man, multiple straw men in this case, argue against those straw men as though they're refuting actual points that the right has. This is not it.
Penguin couples who actually adopt.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got to skip past Dean because I just can't stand his face anymore. I just can't.
Well, has any Christian or conservative ever made the argument that you don't find homosexuality in nature ever in the history of the world? Like, I've never heard
there are low tier Bible thumpers who will say things like, "It ain't natural, boy." Right. Which okay, fair enough. And you could even make an ontological argument that way, I guess, right? It's just that from his standpoint, serious Christian debaters are not using naturalistic fallacies in their debates.
Yeah.
And they're also definitely not appealing to bonobo monkeys, right? Or anything like that. If you say every species on Earth is gay, it still wouldn't prove that humans, that's natural or unnatural. So like in both ways, he kind of gives himself a double entendre there. Now, Dave, I specifically had this for you. This is your favorite. This is a socialist. And I wanted to go through and see if you could give some refutations here, because I know that you're a big fan of socialism. It's your favorite, right?
Oh, yeah.
Own anything anymore. Ain't this the reason y'all profess to hate socialism and communism? This like rabid relationship to private and personal property? You have none. Barely any of my friends can afford a home, even in dual income households. So most of us are renters. I'm one of 4 people I know who owns their vehicle outright because we paid in cash. Most people I know have to finance or lease their vehicles. Everything else around you is based around a subscription model, so you're paying in perpetuity forever. Your music, your movies and TV, your fridge, your toothbrush, your washing machine, everything.
Are you on a subscription model for your toothbrush, Dave?
I am.
I'm just wondering, are you on? Do you have to pay monthly to use your toothbrush, Dave? I don't have that particular subscription. I'm just wondering.
No, me neither.
Your washing machine. I also don't have a subscription to use my washing machine.
I wait until my toothbrush looks like old carpet, and then I get a new one.
Has a subscription, and they've been allowed to successfully lobby for years to lose the right to repair. You can't even repair the shit that you are allowed to own like that. I recently talked about John Deere.
Oh, by the way, thank you, Redacted, for the big raid. I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you, and welcome to all of Redacted's audience here to the Crucible.
Doing that to tractors, like, so again, I ask, how is this working? This feel like freedom to y'all, for real? One slip and fall away from unemployment, a hit and run away from homelessness. You having to finally become acquainted with the people you've been running past for years on the street because you living like them now. Like, this is freedom to y'all. These are the spoils of capitalism.
Now, Dave, there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm just going to let you go ahead and go.
Yeah. All right. Well, man, is this confused? All right. So first of all, when she starts by saying, the things that we see today are a lot of what you guys are criticizing about socialism. It's like, yeah, that's right. And why are there so many similarities between the problems of socialism and the problems we find ourselves in today? Maybe it's because we live under the biggest government in the history of the world. Like, that might be why, they're, objectively speaking, a government that spends more money, has more employees, has more raw power than any government that's ever existed.
Just military, right? Most
Yes.
bloated budget.
By
Got
far,
everything.
if you go look at the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto, we have all of them either in whole or in part. So yeah, it's not like, you know, so there's a lot of problems like that are legitimate that she gets at, like the fact that the price of education is so high. Why is the price of education so high? Who's in charge of education? Oh, right. Okay. It's not the fruits of capitalism. And then she mixes that in with complaining about a bunch of things that are just luxuries. Like, I don't even know what she's talking about. Like, oh my God, I can get every song that was ever created for $3.99 a month. Yeah, that's not you being oppressed. That's something that, like, when I was a kid, we would have like considered like, oh my God, this is so cool. I can't believe you get this much for this cheap. And so it's all just, but there are some real problems. The issue is that, and you see this all the time with like government intervention. It's like you have some big government intervention, and then like 5 years later, they're like, see, it's a disaster. This is why it's proof that we need socialism. We need the government to take, you know, it's like, look at Obamacare and now the calls for Medicare for all. It's like, it's that on a huge scale. But essentially, like, if we could just get government out of the business of education, I think, like, in the same way that you were talking about how, you know, like just gun rights would solve so much of the problems in California, just not having our degenerate government in charge of educating kids, not from kindergarten through 12th grade, but really all through college,
or women,
too.
or women.
Well, you know, it depends on which women.
Yeah,
but yeah, you know, I look, I mean, there's a point to that.
There's a point to that. Well, the reason I bring this up, Dave, and the reason I had Dean on before this is because I wanted to show something which was really interesting here. This is the reason that this is such a popular ideology is because she actually gets a lot of the descriptors right. And when you talk to a person, the way that you can kind of sneak in the most insidious lies is when you can relate to them with all of the descriptors of the same problems they're dealing with. And then you give the prescription, or you give the blame factor to whatever this entity is with your prescription. That is powerful rhetoric, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And then also, so that's a really important aspect of it. But then also on top of that, socialism has this very like intoxicating effect, because they're essentially like the message essentially is that you don't really have to learn anything else. Like, you don't really have to know anything. You don't have to study anything. You don't have to understand anything. Just know that you are a victim. You are entitled to a lot of stuff that you don't have for some reason, and that there's essentially one sweeping solution that could deliver it all to you. That particularly to young people, that's like very seductive. Like, as you get older, you kind of tend to develop more wisdom, and you tend to go like, well, wait a minute, hold on. Like, I kind of have an idea that a lot of people have to work.
There's an I don't give a shit factor also when you get older. Yeah. And as you stop giving a shit, the things that people say to you make less and less sense. That's what I've noticed. Every year that passes, I give a shit about less things, right? And I don't even have time to give a shit about them, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, I get that point. Or maybe even you give a shit about some things more, but the things you give a shit about become less and less and less, and they're like the only things you give a shit about. So you're like, I really care about my wife and kids. Aside from that, everything's in a distant second. And what I think what you're getting at is that what you don't care about at all as you get older is like being perceived as cool or being in with a crowd. And like, these are forces that really rule you when you're 20. You know what I mean? But when you're in your 40s, you're just like, I don't know. I don't give a shit about any of that.
You don't care about none of it. It means nothing.